Hi, it's another quick one on fallacies from everyone's favourite website, Wikipedia. In reasoning, to argue a claim, excuse me, a fallacy is reasoning that is evaluated as logically incorrect and that undermines the logical validity of the argument and permits its recognition as unsound. Regardless of their soundness, all registers and manners of speech can demonstrate fallacies. Because of their variety of structure and application, fallacies are challenging to classify. So, as to satisfy all practitioners, fallacies can be classified strictly by either their structure or content, such as classifying them as formal fallacies or informal fallacies. Respectively, the classification of informal fallacies may be subdivided into categories such as linguistic relevance through omission, relevance through intrusion, and relevance through presumption. On the other hand, fallacies may be classified by the process by which they occur, such as material fallacies, content, verbal fallacies, linguistic, and again formal fallacies, error in inference. In turn, material fallacies may be placed into the more general category of informal fallacies, while formal fallacies may be clearly placed into the more precise category of logical deductive fallacies. Clarification needed. Yet verbal fallacies may be placed into their informal or deductive classifications. Compare equivocation, which is a word or phrase based ambiguity. Example, he is mad, which may refer to either him being angry or clinically insane. To the fallacy of composition, which is premise and inference based ambiguity. Example, this must be a good basketball team because each of its members is an outstanding player. Faulty inferences in deductive reasoning are common formal or logical fallacies. As the nature of inductive reasoning is based on probability, a fallacious inductive argument, or one that is potentially misleading, is often classified as weak. The conscious or habitual use of fallacies as rhetorical devices are prevalent in the desire to persuade when the focus is more on communication and eliciting common agreement, rather than the correctness of the reasoning. So we get this a lot with these trolls. And I'm in my honest opinion, I think a lot of them are paid trolls because they're doing it consciously and their habitual use of fallacies all the time as rhetorical devices to try and persuade people. Yeah. The effective use of a fallacy by an orator may be considered clever, but by the same token, the reasoning of that orator should be recognised as unsound. And thus the orator's claim, supported by an unsound argument, will be regarded as unfounded and dismissed. Formal fallacies. A formal fallacy is an error in logic that can be seen in the argument's form. All formal fallacies are specific types of non sequiturs. Appeal to probability. A statement that takes something for granted because it would probably be the case, or might be the case. Argument from a fallacy, also known as the fallacy. I think I did a video the other day where it said that weren't really a fallacy, the fallacy, but we'll carry on. Assumptions that if an argument for some conclusion is fallacious, then the conclusion is false. Base rate fallacy, making a probability judgment based on conditional probabilities without taking into account the effect of prior probabilities. Conjunction fallacy, assumption that an outcome simultaneously satisfying multiple conditions is more probable than an outcome satisfying a single one of them. Masked man fallacy, illicit substitution of identicals. The substitution of identical designators in a true statement can lead to a false one. Propositional fallacies. A propositional fallacy is an error in logic that concerns compound propositions. For a compound proposition to be true, the truth values of its constituent parts must satisfy the relevant logical connectives that occur in it. Most commonly, and, or, not, only, if, and only if. The following fallacies involve inferences whose correctness is not guaranteed by the behaviour of those logical connectives connectives, and hence which are not logically guaranteed to yield true conclusions. Types of propositional fallacies. Affirming a disjunct, concluding that one disjunct of a logical disjunction must be false because the other disjunct is true. A or B. A therefore not B. Affirming the consequent. The antecedent is an indicative conditional is claimed to be true because the consequent is true. If A, then B. B, therefore A. Denying the antecedent. The consequent in an indicative conditional is claimed to be false because the antecedent is false. If A, then B. Not A, therefore not B. Qualification fallacies. A qualification fallacy is an error in logic where the quantifiers of the premises are in contradiction to the quantifier of the conclusion. Types of quantification fallacies. Existential fallacy. An argument that has a universal premise and a particular conclusion. Formal syllogistic fallacies. Syllogistic fallacies. Logical fallacies that occur in syllogisms. Syllogism is like, all men are mortal, the major premise. The minor premise would be, Socrates is a man. So the conclusion would be, Socrates is mortal. Yeah? So you've got your major premise, your minor premise, and your conclusion. When they leave one of them out, it's called a truncated syllogism, which is an enthymeme. So they could say, all men are mortal, Socrates is mortal. So they've left out the minor premise. So then you have to think, you think, well, Socrates is a man, that's a logical thing to think, right? Or you use your social conditioning to fill in the blank, fill in the minor premise. Yeah? So you can think, oh, well, Socrates must be a man then. If all men are mortal and Socrates is mortal, then Socrates must be a man. But they leave out that one of them premises on purpose. They're not actually lying to anybody, it's just leaving something out. So then basically you have to fill in the blank yourself. And you could get that wrong. Yeah? I could say, well, no, Socrates isn't a man. Socrates is my pet dog. Because pet dogs are mortal, yeah? Or whatever. Or anything that dies is mortal, yeah? So, we see that a lot as well with things where they use, like, pathos, which is appeal to emotion. So they'll bring in some sort of appeal to emotion first, yeah? To get you under an emotional state. Then they'll use an enthymeme on you. So then you've got to fill in that blank from your social conditioning or what you think is logical. Excuse me, a bit of a cough. So what you think is logical, you have to fill that in, yeah? Under the influence of an emotion. And we all know it's never good to make a decision under the influence of an emotion, yeah? Because you end up getting it wrong if you're under the influence of an emotion. Right. Affirmative conclusion from a negative premise. Illicit negative. A categorical syllogism has a positive conclusion but at least one negative premise. Fallacy of exclusive premises. A categorical syllogism that is invalid because both of its premises are negative. Fallacy of four terms. Quantitio terminorum. A categorical syllogism that has four terms. Illicit major. A categorical syllogism that is invalid because its major term is not distributed in the major premise, but distributed in the conclusion. Illicit minor. A categorical syllogism that is invalid because its minor term is not distributed in the minor premise, but distributed in the conclusion. Negative conclusion from affirmative premises. Illicit affirmative. A categorical syllogism has a negative conclusion but affirmative premises. Fallacy of the undistributed middle. The middle term in a categorical syllogism is not distributed. Modal fallacy. Confusing possibility with necessity. Then we go on to informal fallacies. I'm going to do that one in the next video. Carry on with this. Okay, thank you.